Kim McGovey, boxer Bants. I'm here for the first time in Anderson's boxing gym here in Belfast with none other than Dan Anderson himself. First of all, Daniel, spoke to you a few times obviously, but this is the first time I've actually interviewed you. How are you?
I'm actually doing pretty well. Boys have just finished training there for the day, so with a good session under our belt. It's been a busy week, and we're excited. There's a lot of good things happening, and a lot of good times ahead.
So this is only just kind of recent, this whole gym, isn't it? When did you make the plan to go, look, I'm going to open up my own little gym?
I just got to the point where I just knew to take my career forward as well. So obviously I have a personal training business that I run. So I just thought if I could take my personal training business to another level and take my fighters' careers, or set up a gym to take fighters' careers to another level, it was definitely time to do it now. 10 years of coaching on a personal training level, 8 years working with fighters, and I just thought, right, if this is the time to do it, coming out of the pandemic, hopefully coming out of the pandemic for good, it was time to strike while the poker was hot.
So you've got a few fighters under you at the moment, but you yourself obviously have a background in boxing. How did you get into boxing yourself, Dan?
I'd done an interview before with Stephen Morton, and I was just talking about a troubled childhood as such. So when I was probably, I would say about 14, 15, I was a wee bit of a rogue, so I got myself in a lot of trouble, and I tortured my parents previously to go to a boxing club, and I think that was when I started getting more trouble. The more trouble I got in, the more they were like, right, let's get you to the boxing gym. So I was a bit of a rogue, getting in a bit of trouble, and I think from about 15 to about 21, I would say I was very much a rogue. I was always partying, and boxing was sort of like a bit like a safe haven as such. So I would go to a club maybe Monday to Friday, and then I would go and party all weekend and then go to the club again. So I was never really actually doing anything with boxing. So sort of like maybe entered a couple of fights, but I didn't really do much from about. It wasn't until I really got into my 20s and I started to step back from being a rogue that the boxing sort of started changing my life. So I've some great experience. I've entered elite competitions like the Ulster Elites, fought in America, some amazing experience, fought in London loads of times, fought in low, must have fought Repton 6 times, 3 times here and 3 times in London. So some amazing amateur experiences, and then obviously over the last, say, 8 years, obviously just gradually growing my experience as a professional boxing coach.
Am I right in saying that the first profession you kind of took under your wing was Paddy Gallagher?
Yeah, so funny story. So I met Paddy in a gym, and he was doing his own sort of S&C, and I could just see a few things he was maybe doing wrong, and I just thought, I'm going to go and try and help that guy. And I actually knew who Paddy was because Paddy won a Commonwealth Gold, and I followed him. I was like, I actually remember seeing him one day, and we joke about this because he didn't even know who I was. So I was walking down the bottom of the Falls Road, down Castle Street, and he's walking up with his fiancée Rachel, and it was just after he won his Commonwealth Gold, and I looked at him and went, "Well done, Paddy Gallagher." And he sort of looked at me as if, "Who are you?" and walked on. So I told him this story years to come, but I'd always sort of followed him as an amateur, and he's always an amateur that I'd respected. And obviously anyone that goes on to something like the Commonwealth Games and wins a medal like that, obviously you have to respect him as an amateur. And being an amateur boxer myself at the time, was watching his S&C, and I was thinking, God, I could help that guy. So I went over and helped him, and we clicked, and then one thing led to another, and then I started training him, and then the rest is history, and there's plenty of history being made over the last 7 years with Paddy. Like.
Yeah, you travelled all over the place with him, didn't you? USA, pretty much all over the world. You were around with him, and you're still. I know he's essentially he hasn't announced his retirement, but he's not training for a fight at the moment. But he's still kind of with you at the moment, anyway. But that's kind of what was it like? That was kind of your introduction. How did you go from helping Paddy out to essentially being his coach, like?
But just through the years, so obviously my original role, and it was for a lot of years there, was a strength and conditioning coach. And as that evolved, as I stopped boxing then, it was very easy to evolve into a boxing coach, and then the more coach boxing, the more sort of fell in love with coaching the boxing. Didn't fall out of love with the strength and conditioning side of things, but it just became more prevalent that holding the pads, taking boys sparring, and then it's something I completely and utterly fell in love with. And with Paddy, obviously, Jared was the head coach for years, and Jared took a step back a couple of years ago, and I thought, right, well, is it time for me to step up and start sort of building my stable? And then obviously it's snowballed and I've went to my own professional boxing gym here in Belfast. So it's just every step along the way. So I would say I served my time. I served, like, when Paddy was with Breen, I was there, and that was way before MTK, or boxing wasn't really. Boxing was doing well with the likes of Frampton and all, but the McGuigans were sort of coming and running maybe a couple of shows. There wasn't that many opportunities for fighters, and guys like Paddy might be fighting once and twice a year. It was a horrible time for boxing, to be honest. There was only certain fighters, maybe like say Jamie Conlon and Marco McCulloch, and a couple of our guys were regularly getting on the bills, whereas Paddy was very lucky. He was sort of getting like the scrapings. He was very lucky to get on a fight. It was an absolute nightmare actually for Paddy. But I sort of served my time. So when Paddy was at Breen, I got a lot of experience there. Served my time under Jared. I teamed up briefly with D. Walsh there. I wouldn't say I was serving my time there because I had my experience by that stage. So I teamed up with him. He had fighters, I had fighters, and then the rest is sort of history. And now I've just thought, right, I'm out on my own now. I'm ready to take us by the cuff, and I'm gradually just building up a team. And I've given myself plenty of time. I'm a young lad. I'm 34. I've got probably another 40 years in boxing. Never really wanted to, and I started to help out with an amateur boxing club, Ardoyne Amateur Boxing Club. I'm working with some amazing amateurs, and I'm just gradually building my pro stable. So I'm just going to enjoy the process and give myself plenty of time until obviously I'll have guys in title contention.
So you have a few lads down here now training with yourself. I saw Sean McGlinchey earlier. It seems like he's making a comeback. I know he announced retirement at the end of 2019, I think it was, around that time. But it looks like he's coming back. How many other people do you have at the moment?
Well, I've sort of been working with Sean. I've worked a wee bit with Taylor McGoldrick. I've worked a bit with Conor Cook. At the minute, the main fighter for me would be Sean, because Sean is putting a lot of work in and sort of really sort of committing. Recently, another pro's possibly coming on the scene, so I'm just going to gradually build. I've spoke to a couple of kids that are messaging me and talking about going pro, but I wouldn't be putting any young lads under any pressure. The way I run it is, come for a week or two and train before you make a decision. No, unless a fighter feels this and I feel it, I really don't want to work with a fighter unless they're feeling my way. Never would I want a guy to commit if it didn't feel right.
And like before, you would have kind of been between the two things of being the person's boxing coach and then maybe someone else you'd be a strength and conditioning coach. But now you're solely now heading the game just as a boxing coach now with this gym, yeah?
I guess so. Obviously, being a boxing coach and having a strength and distance qualification, as I've said in previous interviews, gives me a massive upper hand. There's very few, I would say, very few quality strength and distance coaches in boxing. It's a niche in itself, and when I say quality, I mean experience. I mean guys that have been involved in British titles, that have been involved at high level boxing in America. There's very few guys with that sort of experience. There is a couple out there, and I'm not going to start throwing names out there. I would never badmouth anybody basically on their experience either. No, you have to gain experience. At one point I was in that position, but it gives me a massive upper hand. The only guy that I'm sort of helping out a bit with S&C is Paddy McCrory at the minute, but gradually once that's wrapped up, it'll just be full-time professional boxing coach, and obviously being able to facilitate both the boxing and strength and conditioning. I am going to bring in another coach. I'm going to have to get guys in to help me, and that's going to be a process, training someone up to help me with the strength and conditioning stuff so that I can purely focus on the boxing. But as I said, I've got my own gym and I've all the time in the world to do it.
Yeah. So essentially here, are you looking to kind of like build a stable?
Yeah, well, I'm already in the process of doing that. So, as I said, I'm very much enjoying working with amateurs. I never thought that's something I would go back to, but I think it's so much amateur experience myself, and I've been around boxing for, nearly 20 years now. So, I've spent nearly 20 years in the sport. So, turned 34, so it's 19, this is year 20 essentially, with some sort of involvement in boxing. And I just feel it's so much stuff for these amateurs, and sometimes I find as well, the amateurs sometimes tend to want it a wee bit more sometimes, and some of the professionals sort of, if they're not in camp, they don't train as well, but it's a wee bit frustrating. So that's something that can be a bit frustrating. Like, no, if you're not in camp and you're not training, I sort of feel like when you're not in camp, that's one of the most important times to train. It's a time to improve weaknesses. It's a time to work on things that you maybe can't work on as much in camp because you're so focused on the camp and you're so focused on that one fighter that you're fighting, and maybe a game plan or a tactic towards that fight. So obviously there's a level of frustration. I understand some guys financially it doesn't suit, so it's just trying to get the right fighters, the right team, and just gradually just tick along. No, as I said, I don't feel under any pressure.
It's a funny kind of story, isn't it? Because you've Sean now here, but you are coaching the opposite corner against him in his last fight when he was fighting Julio. So now, how did it transpire that you became Sean's coach?
Well, after the fight with Julio, I reached out to Sean. I was always friendly with Sean through the amateur days. And I just reached out to him and I just wished him the best of luck. And I just said, Sean, I don't think you've had a fair crack of the whip. You were an amazing amateur. You were a Commonwealth Games bronze medalist. You won multiple Irish titles as a youth. No, you'd so much stuff this game. You're a very gifted southpaw. And I just feel that you didn't have a fair crack of the whip. I just feel that if you had been looked after a bit better, you could have went a lot further. So we sort of left it there. And then we were sort of back and forth with that time. We just like each other's content on social media. And he got married recently. It was just friend. It was just like a more of a friendly sort of friendship that had built over years. And then he reached out to me at Christmas. He says, Dan, I just think you're the right man I want to work with. I want to get myself back in shape. And the most important thing at the start was getting himself back in shape and losing a bit of weight. And then he come up and done it. He says, what about I come up and do a boxing session with you? Come up and done a bit of pads. He was actually in my old studio, so in the wee small studio last year, but due to COVID, I decided to wrap it up and go for the big, take the leap of faith and open this big unit instead. But we just built up a relationship, and then the more we done pads, the more we coached, the more done drills with him, the more sort of give him the technical thought process of the boxer that I believed he could be, that I see in him. We just clicked and we just gelled, and now that we've gelled, he loves training with me and I love training with him. So I love training him, and he has to make that decision himself. But it seems like he loves training with me, and I'm really, really enjoying training him. And I had like a slick southpaw with so much to offer, and a Commonwealth Games bronze medal in the bag. No, like obviously this guy's definitely got talent. He's 20. He's just turned 29. So we're getting into the best part of his career, in my opinion. Could we have Sean McGlinchey 2.0 coming and making serious noise? That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah. Who else do you have here with you?
Well, at the minute, I've had Taylor up doing a wee bit of training. He hasn't been up recently. No fight date for him, so it's a wee bit frustrating for him and frustrating for me because he has a job down back home, and it's hard to make that commitment to come up the road. Conor Cook was doing a wee bit with me, sort of same again, no fight date, has a job. It's very, very hard for these guys to commit. They don't. Taylor does have the sponsors there, but a lot of his sponsors are based around him fighting. So that's a wee bit frustrating as such, you know what I mean? It's frustrating. Conor Cook's the same. Maybe doesn't have as many sponsors as the likes of Taylor, but because they've no fight yet, it's a very, very grueling, hard game as a professional. You've still got bills. Taylor's got a child, Conor's got a child, Big Sean's got a child. You know, like they've all got kids, so like they've got these other commitments in life that sometimes hard to make a commitment. Potentially I've got guys that might turn over soon and I'll be full-time pro, so I'm really looking forward to that, you know what I mean? And here as well, the beauty of it too, because I run a personal training business, there's opportunity for me to get these boys jobs so that when they're not fighting, they can work and make a few quid, obviously, around their own training. So I'm excited for what I can offer a fighter too. I'm excited for the opportunities I can give a fighter, and I will eventually bring on some full-time sponsors for the gym and for Anderson Boxing and take it to another level, so I'm excited.
Yeah. Well, exciting times, Daniel. Very exciting times, and I came in here, watched some of your classes. It really has a nice atmosphere about it, and open, and it's a very nice atmosphere. So looking forward to it, and looking forward to the journey ahead for you now, and actually looking forward to as well Sean coming back as well. So thanks for your time.
Yes, brilliant. Definitely do us again soon, and hopefully I've got fight news and I have a couple of other fighters, and it's going to build and build and build. So we'll say we'll clock in another couple of months, and I'll hopefully have more news for you and have dates set.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Cheers.